Welcome to yet another Tilcodrome, the Circuit of the Americas. This is a track that really rewards the late apex. It has a lot of sharp turns, which means you want to turn as late as you can. And we'll talk about that as well. And we'll also talk about, we got a straightaway coming up. We'll talk about the S's, which is one of the defining features of COTA. Your basic rule is that you want to be aggressive on the first turn or so, and then get more and more patient as you go. All right, so I braked about a moment into the curbs and just before the caution box, a nice late turn as you see the crest of the hill, bring it into the curbs. Make a nice wide sweep around here. Try to enter from the right half of the track. Now, still aggressive. And then here, get more and more patient. I'm off the gas. I'm going to use a little brake. Aim at that access road for a moment. Come under the bridge. There's another caution light that you would use back there. Getting more and more patient as you go, as you're getting slower and slower. I'll just have to go over to turn by turn to tell you my markers there. Now, coming down to here, you're going to brake at about 90 to 80. Brake hard. Turn nice and late. As you can see, that might be later than you feel. The corner was almost out of your sights. This was driven on strict limits, by the way, so advise accordingly. Now, we're going to brake at about 100 going into this next section, and this is where patience is really rewarded up here. So brake at about 100, turn pretty late, raise the corners almost out of your sight, let the car go out wide. We're going to brake about a second or so after that curb on the right went out of sight. Patient on the gas here, and just basically get to the outside of the track here. That's your main goal, is to get to that spot. How you get there is not as important as getting there. So this is where we're going to try to be wide open throttle. Now, being as this is a heavy fuel load early in the race, the car went wide. You'll see my next lap at the end of this video was driven at the end of the race on a light fuel load, and I didn't have to do that. So going into that second to the last turn, there was a caution box I indexed off of, and now let's go corner by corner at COTA, guys.
So COTA turn by turn. So here we are going into turn one. It would be helpful if they put up some more easy to see index markers. They are here, but honestly, I don't really see them when I'm driving. So I'm going to brake about a half second into the curbs. And the reason I'm going to keep using this reference is it kind of depends on how fast you count in your head. You might be able to count to 2 for what I know. But for me, it's about a half second. I will say, too, if you drive past that caution box without applying your brake, you're probably too late. So the brakes start about here somewhere. And I turn, and it may change based on what camera angle you use, of course, but I turn about when that corner is about to go out of sight. You can just barely see the beginning of the curb. There's a nice little pylon there, unless somebody plows it down for you. And it's just before the crest of the hill. And do pay attention to the fact that I'm still on the outside of the track. I have not crabbed in or kind of moved the car off the edge of the track, so to speak. I have kept it on the outside of the track. And this is actually a corner where the trajectory I'm on and the location is actually important. And because you scrub so much speed and just moving your braking point a few feet can drastically impact how the car wants to turn in here. This is a lofty goal, but this is where you want to end up. Now, if you find yourself consistently going out wide, like happens on the first lap here all the time, go back and look at your turn-in marker. And you kind of use your depth perception. How close to the top of the hill were you, right? And you may want to look at, and it's kind of hard to see, but I got the wheel nearly upside down. I have a lot of steering input into car. And here's where I go into that again. If you are using the XS, remember, look at your steering where you turn in and look at how much you're turning. I mean, it's a sharp turn. It needs a lot of steering. I couldn't really draw quite what I wanted, but basically you want to go out to the curb and then sweep into the inside curb. And this is a little bit of a sharp turn to get in, but the car can totally handle it. Do beware, though, of the fact that since you're trying to go left and you're in a traction limited spot, the car might try to spin out. So you might have to kind of keep the car right momentarily to make sure you can get up into a higher gear and then cut over. So as you sweep around that last turn, you'll come to this bridge, and I don't think car placement is necessarily critical. I mean, I have entered this from the left half of the track and just had a nice left sweep and made it, but it's more likely you're going to cut the track that way. I like to come in from the right side, and I have just a little bit of a left angle in the wheel, and I'm going to keep that angle. And it's kind of like you find a sweet spot. If you're about here and kind of slinging under the bridge, you can just about hold that angle and make this corner and just put 2 on the curbs. Now, the rule to these S's, and I wish I'd put some text on here before I started, but the rule to the S's is be aggressive in the first couple, and then as you go, get more and more patient. We're not going to be patient quite to the point like we were at Japan in the last race, but we need to be patient as we get to the end. And notice I'm still wide open throttle, and as I come off this curb, I start letting some throttle out. And as I make it to the right, notice I still have a little bit of wheel in the car. I'm easing off the throttle, and as I come to the next left, I'm just going to give a little speed adjustment with the brake pedal, just lightly dragging the brakes, and now I've got a little bit more left-hand wheel in the car. And I'm going to hustle the car a little bit around this corner. I might need another brake. I might need another lift as I go around that right. The main thing is just be patient with whatever you do. Now, here's where your instinct is probably going to want, if you're like me, your instinct is going to want to make you try to hug this curb. And there's a couple of things that happen. One is you suddenly find yourself inside the curb, track limits violation. And additionally, and either way, if you hug the curb or even staying on the track, or even if you come inside, when you go under this Pirelli bridge over here, you pop to the left side of the track. So what you really want to do, and I use the gas to get the car out there. If you're driving fast enough, there is a technique where you can kind of steer with the gas, meaning you were on the gas so hard, the car went wide. And that's kind of what I want to do. Now, I have a lot of things on the screen here, admittedly. But I don't really use the Ferris wheel, but you might want to use that because it happens to be sitting right over top of the re-entry spot for the, I think it's called the West Course, but short course there. So you want to look at that access road, which is also coming out here. And so what I do is as I'm coming around here, I'm looking at that access road. A car goes where your eyes look. So if you look at the access road, you kind of go wide for a moment. All right. Now, as I come around here, notice I have left it off the gas. If you go back and read what I wrote. So as I come around to here, I kind of draw a bead. My eyes go from here to here. And I kind of lift, and what that does is, and notice how I mean, you could drive almost easily one car in here, but the problem is that car is going to be on the wrong line and pinched up, and he's going to be behind you pretty quickly. But you could drive a car theoretically right there, and this is about where you want to be. So as you come under the bridge, the goal is if you did that last section right, the car is going to land right about here. No more than a width off the right side of the track, aimed at the right side of the track. And there's no signboards or anything, so I index everything off that caution box. You might use the beginning of the green, but I use the caution box. You brake before the box and turn as you come parallel to the box. And by the time I get to the box, you will see I am on the right half of the track, and I am just starting my turn in, and notice my right tire is right on the verge line. And also, once I got to the box, using that as my turn marker, I also would then bring my eyes over and notice that there's the curb I want to touch. I didn't quite get to the curb, and I like to hold the car farther left here. The AI is going to go out to the middle. So I'm going to try to trace and hold the car to the left half of the track around this corner. Now, my next turn-in marker is very difficult to explain on a picture. When I'm in the video, and if you look for this, once you see it, you can't unsee it. But if you're on the left half of the track, there's several things you'll notice. One is there's tire marks going up and around to the right. Another thing is that this curb keeps going around to the right, and you'll see it you'll kind of see that curb going up. The other thing is that I tried to take this screenshot when the car was more about here. The problem was it wasn't quite visible the way it is in the video as you come to it. But here's the thing. Notice that the track seems almost straight right here, and then when you get there, it's almost like that white verge line pops to the left a few feet. When you get to that spot where the verge line is popping to the left a few feet, turn in. And again, I like to be farther wide. Notice I am using some brakes here as well. The AI would be more over here. And basically your goal, if you ran that turn-in marker right, when you turn in nice and sharply, you should put 2 tires on this curb. And go back and look for that spot if you're consistently turning too early, too late, whatever. It's a hard spot to find. I also could do it based off just rhythm. You know, I've been turning left for this period of time, and now I turn right. I just know based on how long I've been driving. That's another way you might do it. You would go up. So you'd kind of hold right until the end of the curb, and then you would bring it left over the next curb, which should put you right here. which it's not nearly as rough in this game as it is in real life. This is the curb that broke Sebastian Vettel's car and made a nice little meme picture back in 2019, by the way. I think that's the one at least. From here on out, just, make sure you don't violate the track limits. You might have to stay off the gas for a moment to make sure you don't end up over here and out in the grass and tearing down DHL advertisements. Basically, it's wide open to the hairpin, but just make sure you don't end up, there is a curb down here you can cut about right there. So stay out for a moment, probably stay out past the DHL sign, make a little brief cut, bring it in. This section isn't too hard. And I'm going to brake at about 80 most of the time. You might have to back it up to 100, but about 80 is about right. And keep the car in a nice straight line as you're braking. Kind of aim at one of those two billboards as you're braking. Now, the turn-in marker, I have several things that I might index off of. For one, the wheel is just starting to turn in, right? For one, the corner, what I really spend more time looking to is the corner, and I kind of have a depth perception thing that when I see the corner is almost out of my vision, I know I need to turn for it. This is a spot where virtual reality and turning your head might really be helpful and totally change the game of how you drive the corner. Another thing is you might notice you want to turn a little bit before the end of the green. You might also, it's more visible in the video, but I couldn't go take 4 or 5 screenshots, but there's a corner worker station right here just as you come into the corner, and that might be helpful in helping you, stay out later. If you turn too early here, you're going to be out on the excess corner and just messing it up. I almost nailed it. I ideally would have had 2 on that curb. And much like the exit of most corners, just let the car go out to the edge of the track. It's a long straightaway. Check your messages, smoke a cigarette. And this is a spot where your braking point changes quite a bit here based on how you ran the car. If you were running it in rich fuel mode with full DRS and ERS, you're going to have to brake probably at 100. For me, a lot of time, it's around 90, maybe even 80. Maybe even to start these little advertisements, I don't know, but it's somewhere around 100 is for most of the 2020 F1 cars. Turn-in marker, it's a little bit funny. There is some like weird greasy spot in the track right along in here, and I kind of hook around that spot if the lighting is right. This is a little bit earlier than the hairpin before. It seems like just going really wide doesn't seem to get helpful here. But all I can really say about my turn-in point is it's about here. Another thing you might index off of is the end of that guardrail. So you want to come in, you want to kiss the curb, and the car is going to go wide. I would use, let's see, I was in second gear here, I think, but I would probably, at least until I've got a good feel of it, just stay in third gear. You'll come out to the end of this curb, and then you'll be aiming at that curb, but you'll start your braking about a second after you pass the end of this curb. There again, it depends on how quickly you count in your head, but that's what you may go by. Another thing you may go by, although I don't really use it, is that orange in defense right there. All right, so we'll start our turn-in right at the end of the green marker. And for me, in my head, this feels like I'm turning too early considering how sharp the turn is. But the track is very wide here. These modern Herman Tilke drones are very wide. So just know that there's plenty of room. The goal is get to the curb. And here we are. Kissing the curbs is fine. And be ready to keep your steering angle. I really need to quit using these highlights and putting them over my steering wheel. But whatever your steering angle is, it's getting you around this corner. You need to hold that angle. Now, this is not a perfect line, and honestly, I would say car placement is kind of semi-important. I have pulled off passes right here. You can use that curb, but if you miss it, it's okay. I have even ended up 2 wheels on that red patch momentarily going to this point. But the main thing is I wanted to give you an idea and use this as a real thing. Kind of trace with your eyes really quickly about in here where you want to go. Also, make sure you're short shifting or up shifting early. This is a very traction limited area. I mean, you're still turning quite a bit and you're trying to accelerate. And those two combinations usually lead to a lot of spinalas. From the higher up TV pod, you can see the Rolex advertisements in the ground. And from here, that's what you would want to aim for. If you're using the lower cockpit camera, you're just going to want to aim to get to the outside of the track. I start my braking about a second before that red and white curbing starts on the left. The main thing is, especially without the line assist, is you're very tempted to bring the car in and kind of hug around here, and that just totally that tightens this corner up so much, and it ruins your speed. And in these cars, it'll slow you down so much you'll probably spin out trying to get back to gas. So the main thing is work on finding a way to get the car to kiss those outside curbs. I didn't quite get there this lap, but this is pretty decent placement. And again, this is another one of them spots where at COTA, you turn a lot of times right as the corner is almost out of your field of view. Like I said, virtual reality would totally change this game for you. You may also index off of that little this green excess patch again. And you definitely need to make sure that you're starting from the far outside. All right. 2 on the curb. Again, just take it out to the outside. And this is going to be a lot like a couple other corners at COTA where you come out to the outside, but then you're going to have to aim to the left side of the track and come out here. Now, your goal is to work towards driving this hairpin, or not a hairpin, but a sweeper at wide open throttle. You might need a light lift here if you're driving a classic car, if you're driving a bad F1 2020 car, maybe a Haas or a Williams, but your goal is wide open throttle. And another thing that'll actually change how you run this sweeper is if you're on a harder tire or if you're on a full fuel load. So I would start from about here, about the end of the green, the bridge, somewhere out in here. It's a double apex. So if you clip this spot and you're wide open throttle, don't be scared to keep adding wheel here either. I mean, it scrubs some tires, but just kind of figure out what works for you. You might need a light lift. You might just need to turn the wheel a little bit more. There's a spot, I didn't really screenshot it, but the curb kind of goes away. The car is going to want to go wide, and then if you hold that steering angle, it starts coming back in. And I think the modern F1 cars have enough downforce that you can hug the inside and not do what the track acclimatization program is going to want you to do, which is end up on the outside of the track. That might be a good thing if you're really obsessed with tire wear, though. So again, this just reiterates something I've already said. I try to keep it within a width of the curbs all the way around there, however, is my thing. I think that's faster. I think the modern F1 car can take it, and I can usually do it wide open throttle, even in a Haas in 29 or an Alfa Romeo in the 2020 base car. Basically, you want to make sure that you're able to get to the right half of the track by the time you get to that curb right there. I used to try to say drive 2/3 or so of the way down this curb and in turn, but then I realized, crap, there's a caution box right there. I won't admit how long I drove before I saw it. But everything kind of indexes off that box. You brake, as you see me doing here. I haven't even taken my foot off the gas. This is exactly my braking point, by the way, in this car. Brake here, and then right as that caution box goes by the car, turn in. And if you do it right, this is what you'll be looking at. And be careful. This was driven on strict limits. Lots of replays used in this race, unfortunately. And you want to try to put 2 on that curb. You can even bring 2 onto the orange, but they do get picky about keeping these right half tires on that inside the white. It's also very, very easy to go wide. I mean, if you ever watch an IndyCar race or even any race that doesn't call track limits, cars are all the time way out here. There's also apparently NASCAR is going to put some giant turtle curbs out here to discourage that. And on various places of this track, but let's not get sidetracked. Anyway, 2 over is fine, but it is easy for the curb to almost like suck the car out. And if you do end up out there, like if the right side tires end up to the right of the red and white curbs, if you can, hold them out there and then bring them back in right there. That also works for that hairpin leading onto the back straight. Anyway, this is another spot I have a difficult time telling you where I brake. It's a moment into the red and white curbs, and it's a few car lengths before that white line. And that white line is almost parallel to this caution box. So use a variety of those and figure out when you need to brake. It does feel earlier than it should be. You may also index off the pit road entrance, by the way. So my turn-in marker, I mean, it's about here. I don't really have anything else to really tell you. And it's earlier than it feels like. Like traditional driving schools would teach that, hey, you got a really sharp turn leading onto a long straightaway, late apex it, get back to the gas early. I've tried that, and for me, it doesn't work. So for me, what really works here is an earlier turn, get 2 tires on that curb, kind of hug it for a moment, and be careful. Don't let the car get out wide. Be patient on the gas if you have to. and take her down the straightaway, and that's a lap at COTA, guys. Remember, I was not well liked as a child, and I'm trying to make up for it now, so leave a like if this helps you out, and I would greatly appreciate it. Enjoy your time at COTA.
This is your final lap of the race. Thank you for all your hard work out there. That was a strong drive.